Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some pretty wild source material. It's a sixth grade math lesson that asks a fascinating question. Can the Bible actually teach you algebra? We're going to break down how this curriculum argues that yes, it absolutely can, by finding hidden mathematical patterns in some of the oldest stories in the world. I mean, it's a pretty surprising question, right? Can ancient stories and parables really help us understand algebraic relationships? Well, according to this lesson plan, the answer is a big yes. So you've got these two worlds that, let's be honest, feel like they're miles apart. On one side, you have biblical narratives, stories full of morals, characters, and drama. And on the other, you've got algebraic relationships, just the pure, cold logic of cause and effect. This lesson plan tries to draw a straight line right between them. So how in the world do you turn a parable into an equation? That's what we're going to get into in this first section. We're going to unpack this really unique teaching method that connects these two fields and, maybe makes math feel a little more human. Okay, so at its heart, the goal here is pretty straightforward. Find patterns in stories and then turn them into data. The big idea is that any story, it doesn't matter how old it is packed with these little cause and effect relationships that you can actually measure, graph, and understand with math. Now, to make all this work, the whole lesson really hinges on one core idea. It's all about learning how to spot the cause and effect that drives a story forward. And then, and this is the cool part, you translate that story logic into the language of math, independent and dependent variables. The big idea behind this whole thing is that an algebraic relationship is just a fancy way of talking about how one thing affects another. The cause, that's your independent variable, and the effect is your dependent variable. The key here is that this isn't just some abstract math concept. It's a pattern that shows up in literally every story you've ever heard. Okay, so let's see how this actually works. The lesson walks through three main examples to show students how you can pull data right out of a story and slap it onto a graph. First up is the parable of the talents. So for this first one, we're looking at the parable of the talents, where a servant is given some money to invest. The cause, or independent variable, is just the passing of time, measured in days. The effect, our dependent variable, is the value of that investment. See, it's a pretty simple, direct relationship. And of course, when you graph that data, the pattern just jumps right out at you. The lesson points out that this isn't just a random bunch of bars. It's a visual story. You can literally see consistent growth over time. And here's where they connect it all back together. That upward trend on the graph, it isn't just numbers. It's a picture of the story's moral. That wisdom and effort literally pay off. The math shows the moral. All right, the next example is even more direct. We've got Nehemiah building the wall of Jerusalem. Once again, our independent variable, our cause, is time. But this time, the dependent variable, the effect, is something you can physically see. The height of the wall going up. Now, this graph tells a really powerful story. Look at that perfectly straight line going up. That tells us something super specific. Nehemiah's team was working at a constant, predictable speed, exactly 5 feet per day. It's the perfect picture of steady, reliable progress. And this quote just nails it. It perfectly sums up the algebraic relationship at the heart of the story. More time equals a taller wall. It's cause and effect made totally visual. Okay, for the third example, things get a little more abstract, a little more interesting. Here, the independent variable isn't time. It's something qualitative, the kind of situation David was in. Was it good, neutral, or bad? The dependent variable is how many psalms he wrote because of it. So this bar chart looks different, right? It's not showing us change over time, it's a comparison. The graph insight here is that, yeah, David wrote the most psalms during good times, but he was still writing and praising God no matter what was going on. The situation clearly influenced the outcome. And that really hammers home the main point from all three of these examples. A change in one thing, whether it's time or something more abstract like a situation, causes a real, measurable change in something else. So, after the lesson walks you through those three examples, it's time for the students to try it themselves. This is where we move from watching to doing, with a bunch of exercises to make sure they can actually find the math inside a story on their own. Now the students get a totally new story, the Judgment of Solomon, and they have to do the whole process from start to finish. They've got to find the relationship, make their own graph, explain the connection, and even think about how different choices would have changed the data. And for the final task, the ultimate test. They have to create their own table completely from scratch. They're given a principle from the book of Malachi, that giving tithes leads to blessings, and their job is to translate that idea into a clean, clear algebraic relationship. So when you step back and look at this whole thing, what's the big takeaway? Well, it's about something way bigger than just mixing math and scripture. It's really about how we make abstract ideas feel real. Ultimately, the real magic of this method is using something we all instinctively get, stories, to explain something that can feel really abstract. By grounding variables in the choices characters make and the results of a plot, algebraic relationships stop being just random numbers on a page. They become tangible, they become relevant, and honestly, just a lot easier to understand. And that leaves us with one last thought. If this method works for these ancient stories, what other narratives could we use? What patterns of cause and effect are hiding in plain sight in your favorite movies, or books, or even just in the story of your own life? What could you turn into data?